Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond Focus TV. My name is Angie Daniel, and I'm the hostess of the show. On tonight's show, we have with us the District Attorney of Brooklyn Kings, Mr. Charles Hynes. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, I'll introduce him to you. Welcome back. Before we took the break, I did tell you I will introduce to you the District Attorney, Mr. Charles Hynes. He is a sixth-term District Attorney of Kings. He's up for re-election. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure, really, because what I wanted to do is to have an idea of who you are, your background, and how you get it so involved in Brooklyn. So tell us a little bit about the person behind the whole thing.
Well, I graduated from St. John's University and its law school in '63 from the law school. I started my career as an associate attorney in the Legal Aid Societies in the criminal division. I was recruited to join the Brooklyn DA's office in the end of 1969, and I worked there for 6 years. I was promoted to confidential assistant to the DA handling serious felony trials. Then I became the chief of the Rackets Bureau, and I was then promoted to first assistant. I was then recruited by the then Governor Hugh Carey and Attorney General Louis Lefkowitz to investigate and prosecute nursing home fraud in New York State, which was a serious problem in 1975. 1980, I was recruited by Ed Koch to become his fire commissioner. And then after a couple of years there, I went into private practice. I spent a couple of years in private practice. I was then recruited by Governor Mario Cuomo to become the corruption prosecutor for New York State. And then in that job, I had the obligation to prosecute the tragedy of Michael Griffith, who was killed in the Howard Beach section of Queens County in 1986. I convicted 3 white racists and sent them to jail for a very, very long period of time. As a result of that, really, the notoriety I received, I was elected Brooklyn District Attorney in 1989, and I'm coming on to my 24th year, and I'm born and bred Brooklynite. I'm married to a former trauma nurse. We had 5 children. We have 16 grandchildren. And we live in the Bay Ridge section of Brooklyn now.
Wow. How does it feel? Because I while reading your story and the idea of you were born and raised in Brooklyn, and now you're representing Kings. Everything that you know is right here. How does that make you feel?
Well, I love Brooklyn. I love the diversity of Brooklyn. And Brooklyn has always been diverse. Brooklyn, because of the connection to Ellis Island, at the turn of the 20th century, had the spillover from the folks who first arrived in Manhattan. So the immigrant population of Europe settled in Brooklyn for the most part.
Yes.
1/7 of the United States traces its roots to Brooklyn. Brooklyn has become diverse in different ways. People of color dramatically filling up the county.
Immigrants.
people from the Caribbean,
Yes.
people from from Latino countries. It's just the Pakistani explosion on Coney Island
Coney
Avenue,
Island Avenue.
Russian immigrants. So I mean, to me, Brooklyn has a special meaning because representing the diverse population and being sensitive to each and every cultural group
Yes.
is the thing I'm most proud of. And what I've tried to do to maintain that is to have an exceptional community relations bureau, people who are just do an extraordinary job acting as the eyes and ears of the office. So Brooklyn is my place.
Yes, it is. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, because I know you've covered so many different grounds. You're extremely sensitive when it comes to violence, domestic violence. You have this whole program of reaching out to women who've been abused.
Right.
I want to kind of have a connection between that and women that are in prison, which is two things that you are very passionate about.
Right.
So can you make a little correlation for us?
Well, I mean, first of all, I grew up in the nightmare of domestic violence. I watched my mother beaten when I was a child, and it continued until I was old enough and strong enough to stop it. My mother was a real estate broker at a time when women were not welcome in the workplace. And so during the day, she would be disrespected, typically by male lawyers, and then she'd come home at night and have to duck punches for my father, who was an alcoholic. So, you learn an awful lot about the inner strength of women from that experience. And my mother was a very strong person, but a very soft person, a person who really cared about me, had the good wisdom to have me counseled when I was growing up, because one of the problems with kids growing up in that environment is they feel the same fury and anger and frustration I felt, and they lash out unless they're counseled. People look around at my office. The majority of the assistant district attorneys are women. The majority of the executives are women. I have promoted women everywhere I've been. I promoted the first deputy fire commissioner, female deputy fire commissioner in the history of the New York City Fire Department. Everywhere I've been, I've promoted women because I knew the experience my mother had and how she had to fight her way through the insensitivity and the gender bias. So, looking at domestic violence from my perspective today, I'm very, very proud to say that before 1990, virtually no prosecutor in this country cared about domestic violence. Today, every prosecutor has some resources. We have in Brooklyn the most comprehensive program for domestic violence victims and surviving children. It's called the Family Justice Center. And I'm very proud of the fact that Mayor Bloomberg and I, who opened up the center in 2007, managed to get every possible resource for those victims and their kids. And I'm also very proud that the mayor dedicated that center to Regina Catherine Drew, who's my mother. And I always will appreciate and remember him for that. In terms of women in prison,
because this huge outbreak.
It's a very serious problem, and what we have tried to do is approach it on two different levels. For example, I have a drug treatment alternative to prison.
Yes.
And we have men and women in that program as an alternative. They go into residential drug treatment.
And that's a really huge program that you're pushing. I want to talk about that in it specifically.
I'm just touching on it. But in that program, the children can't go to rehab.
Yes.
Well, we started something called Drew House, again named in my mother's memory, where we have 5 families, mothers and their kids, living in a multiple dwelling in Crown Heights. That program allows women to stay with their children, to go out and work during the day, to nurture those children at night, because I recognize the incredible, irreversible trauma visited on a child who sees their mother go off to prison. Now, unfortunately, regardless of the success involved, and it was academically validated by the Columbia School of Nursing as reducing reoffending rates by half, being infinitely cheaper. I mean, infinitely
Yes,
cheaper.
than a prison.
$29,000 for a mom and 2 kids in that program. If you took the 2 kids and put them in foster care and put mom in prison, it's $134,000. I have not been able to get resources from government to expand it. So I'm very, very happy about a collaboration that the Women's Prison Association and I will begin on Wednesday of this week.
Okay.
We will have 45 mothers being able to stay home with their children or go to work, and they'll be monitored very, very closely by case managers. And so those 45 moms will be save the horror of going to jail, and the children of those moms will not experience that
Not
trauma.
having their parents.
So
I have 2 questions
Shoot.
Within that statement that you just made, but we need to take a short break. When we come back, I'll ask you that question.
okay, good enough.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to Beyond Focus TV. We were just on a break. If you're just turning on, we are here with the District Attorney, Charles Hynes of Kings, having this great conversation about how we can make a transition. Instead of sending women to prison, we'll send them to, like, it's some sort of a Safeway house, right? Would it be in the same term?
We have the safe house, the apartment, and we really cannot get the resources to duplicate it, unfortunately. And so, working with the Women's Prison Association, Prisoners Association, we came up with this great idea. All right, if we can't afford to put them in this multiple dwelling that we have, why not let them stay home?
So they just stay at home?
They stay home. They can work as well.
Okay.
So it allows them to have a normal life, but knowing full well that they are under mandate because they have to plead guilty.
So they'll still be in probation?
Yeah, they have to plead guilty up front. And they are managed very, very carefully by professional social workers.
Okay.
And as they finish their term,
because I was going to ask you about that. Is there a time limit for it?
They'll get a term maybe a year. Or they could get 2 years. But at the end of that time, the plea of guilty will be set aside. The case will be dismissed and the file sealed.
Oh.
So if they're asked in the future, have you ever been convicted of a crime, the answer is no.
The answer is no, because you have a file.
I think this has great potential. It's it's cost effective, obviously, because the cost of putting a woman in jail is $64,000.
Yeah. But I have a quick question within that. Sure. Is there specific, like, is it first probation or first-time offender, or do you have to have a specific crime that you've been told? Because, I don't want people to just think, like, okay, you can just go.
My role is to say, I got 45 women that I will allow to stay home or go to work and be with their kids. The people who refer the cases to me, they will set the criteria. Okay. And they are social service professionals, and they'll also administer the program with random visits, with alcohol and drug testing. So it'll be a very, very controlled environment, except that they'll be living at home. They'll be allowed to work, and the greatest thing is seeing mom and the kids at home at night over dinner.
Exactly. Not only that, you're saving finance for the city in itself. The parents get to stay home and raise their kids, and sometimes people just need a little step back so they'll be able to move on. Like learning that I've made a mistake. This was my. You know what? I can do better. I'm going to do better because this is what happened. I could have lost my family.
And also, what it helps me is to make people understand how we've redefined the office of a public prosecutor.
Yes.
The easy thing I do is put people in jail. The real tough thing for me to do is to try and find prevention program, intervention program. That's why I'm so proud of all the things we've done.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that you don't get public safety by building warehouses of despair. You get public safety by reducing reoffending rates.
Yes.
And that's how Brooklyn has gone from the 5th most violent place in America to one of the 10 best places to live in America.
talking about that, you have a program, the treatment alternatives for dually diagnosed patients. Can we, prisoners, can we talk about the DTAP and TAD? How are they different?
Well, the different kinds of addictions, really. One is drug addiction, and one is drug addiction where someone has also have serious problems with mental health.
Okay.
We started the first mental health court in Brooklyn, in the city. I'm sorry, in the whole state.
Okay.
There are now mental health courts popping up all over the state, and we were able to provide the resources for that by working with the dually diagnosed, so people who have drug addiction and they have mental health issues. But at the end of the programs, you've got the same kind of result. You have people whose cases are dismissed and the file is sealed.
So it's the same thing as the doing program?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you run those two programs alternately. We have also the young women program, because it's amazing to me how many different programs that you have running, just so you could eliminate people going to jail.
Yeah.
You have the youth program, you have the studying program, you have women program, you have nonviolence program that people can use instead of trying to say, you're not saying okay, everybody's going to go to jail because you committed this crime, and then you give them a chance.
Because it never worked. It never worked putting people in jail. And all you do is you violently disrupt families. And no one has really understood that. Maybe you have to grow up in a violent environment, as I did, to understand it. But the incredible dysfunction that's caused to a family when mom or dad or both go to jail and the kid goes off to foster care or ends up in grandma's house, it's something that you may never reverse. And those children, because of their anger, will lash out and hurt people. And they become part of the criminal justice system. So by children understanding that, and you hope they understand that it's the prosecutor who kept mom at home, that maybe they'll have a different understanding of what we do.
Okay. So we can change that. We can change the environment that the kids are in by educating, we'll say, the community in itself, right?
Absolutely.
Getting them to know, okay, we could do this. This is what all of these programs are available. Is just how can we use it to our benefit? How can people who are first-time offenders understand? Okay, this is I know there's criteria and limits. I just don't want to talk about them. Right. Unless you want to bring them up.
No, people. I think no, pretty much the people in Brooklyn that I'm the first district attorney in the country to have residential drug treatment. I'm the first district attorney in the country to have a reentry program for the formerly incarcerated. We are the first in so many ways. First domestic violence court, first major domestic violence bureau. Every expansion, every trailblazing change has come from the office of the Brooklyn District Attorney. And I'm so proud of it because, again, our office reflects the public.
Yes, you do. Yeah. I have a huge question a huge subject that I want to talk to you about. Sure. I think that your office is making an awesome change with that. But I need to take a break first. Sure. When we come back, we'll talk about it. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Beyond Focus TV. We are here with the District Attorney, Mr. Charles Hynes. We are talking about different aspects of what we are doing in Kings County to make Brooklyn a better place to be. We've talked about alternative places for parents, for imprisonment. Now, one of the things that I know your office is really huge on doing is the Buy Arms Back.
Right.
Can you tell the community what that is and when it is happening?
We decided in 2008, as a result of my clergy liaison to the Brooklyn community, Reverend Joe Jones, and we have the only clergy liaison in the state in the DA's office, that it would be more comfortable for someone to go to a church to turn in a gun and get a card worth $200. And Commissioner Kelly and I split that, $100 each. And we began in 2008, and we have, over the years, recovered 2,714 guns off the streets of Brooklyn. But in addition, my colleagues, the other 4 DAs, have replicated the church buyback program. And according to the NYPD, we've taken over 11,000 guns off the streets of New York City.
Over 11,000.
Yes, ma'am. And beginning, the next gun buyback program will be at the Gospel Assembly Sister Connie's Church in Coney Island on Surf Avenue in June. I don't know the date offhand, but we can supply it for your
Yes,
program.
definitely.
So we're very excited. We believe that, I believe personally, we should have a gun buyback program every 3 weeks.
And it probably would work because right now we are facing a crisis in New York, especially in Brooklyn, where everyone have a gun.
Yeah.
Everyone, you're eligible to be able to carry a gun, but we've been affected by it. Like family members are being affected by it, kids have been affected by it. If we have a way that we can transit that, change the whole aspect of you don't need a gun to protect yourself.
Yeah, look, we have a murder rate that dropped from 760 a year in 1990 to under 150 since 1960, first time. But 75% of those murders are gun-related. So, of course, it's my passion to try and get every damn gun off the street, excuse me, because it worries me so much that someone tomorrow morning is going to kill some 4-year-old child. And every way we can to get these guns off in a reasonable way, and using the Constitution, we got to do it.
Talking about passion, I know you're extremely passionate. You have a documentary coming up.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we were approached by CBS Network News a couple of months ago, and they said that, and the person involved was a major executive in CBS News. Her name is Susan Serinsky. Her life was portrayed by Holly Hunter on Network, the movie.
Yes.
And she said, we've done the research. You have the most progressive DA's office in the country. We think people want to see something different in law and order. You've got all of these alternative programs. And would you let us do it? And I said, sure. I think it's a great idea. So the premiere is May 28th, which happens to be my birthday.
Oh, my God.
And then it's 5 consecutive weeks for a total of 6 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you need an extra?
Well, there's no money for us,
Well, it's good to be on TV at all times. But in all seriousness, though, I think besides the fact that you get to portray your office, people get to understand why is it working and what's working.
Sure, and it'll showcase the incredible work that the women and men in my office do in a non-traditional way.
It's extremely interesting.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are looking forward to it. I know one of the things that I believe in is that there's always room to improve. There's always room to grow.
No question.
But you can always learn from your surrounding.
No question.
And being able to see that, it kind of changes the whole aspect of what we see on TV. That's number one.
And 2 weeks ago, I had no idea that on Wednesday of this week we'd be announcing the 45 women. Staying home. Someone came up with that idea and has been working on it.
And it's working.
And it's, that's the wonder of this office, that we do things so differently, and I've never met a new idea that I wouldn't review.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
Yeah.
So I want to play a little games with
Sure.
you. It's really not a game, but it's just getting your opinion on certain things.
Right.
Right now we have this whole stop and frisk that's happening all over New York. Advice to the young people of Brooklyn as their DA, what would you say to them?
If you stopped, be respectful, be accepting. You don't have to like it, but don't show that. I think that there have been changes made. I think finally it was very, very clear to the police commission that you could not continue to have hundreds of thousands of kids, mostly kids of color, stopped and with not as many guns as people would have expected. So what he's done is issued a protocol, which is in keeping with the traditional stop and frisk.
Okay.
When you have a reasonable suspicion that someone might be doing something wrong, you can stop them, and then you question them. And during that questioning, if you get the impression by something that you may be in danger, then you can frisk. But
Okay.
you've got to do it in a careful way. Now, every police officer, under the new protocol, must write down in their report in a very clear way what led them to stop a young person, what led them during the conversation to be raised up in order to search. I think that's going to reduce the numbers of stop and frisk dramatically, and I think you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and I think that the commissioner has recognized there had to be changes.
Okay. Very, very interesting. I actually didn't know about this part because this whole stop and frisk is really huge in Brooklyn, and then we have young people just walking around.
The whole city is
Yes.
huge.
Yes. The second part of my wanting to pick your brain is, as a Brooklynite, I know you're going for re-election.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see Brooklyn in the next 6 years?
Well, if the people rehire me, I see a couple of things. First of all, the Red Hook Community Court is one of the most important things we did. In 2000, when we opened Red Hook as a community court, Red Hook was still a very, very dangerous place. As a matter of fact, you go back 15 years, and Red Hook was a place you didn't go near unless
Yes.
you had a platoon of Marines.
That is so true.
Today, it's one of the 5 safest places.
Yes.
The next community justice center is going to, or community justice center is going to be in Brownsville. We have on the drawing board East New York and East Flatbush as a possibility. Now, what I want to be able to show is that the miracle of Red Hook, as we call it, will be the miracle of Brownsville. And Brownsville, by the way, is going to be up and running in 2 years. And I believe I can make the case to the mayor and to the city council and to the court system that the decision 60 years ago to centralize the court system was a dumb decision because it took the credibility that was in the neighborhoods with
I like
local
that.
courts downtown, and for years people didn't trust the system.
Okay.
People in Red Hook trust the system. People in Brownsville are going to trust the
Exactly.
system. And by the people of this county and this city deserve to have justice back in their neighborhoods, and that's what I'm going to fight for. We only can give 1,000 people coming home from prison the resources that make them that give them rehabilitation. 2,000 other people coming home from prison, we can't give the resources to because we don't have the money. What I'm going to do is find the money. So all 3,000, that's what we get every year, are going to get it. And then you're going to see significant levels, increases in public safety. That's what we're going to do.
So I could see 6 years from now, people
Yeah.
would have, they're going to be fighting to walk through the street of Brooklyn.
They won't be able to afford to buy anywhere in Brooklyn.
Right now, we can't afford to buy anywhere in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
But, with the means, and then we have so many different ways that we're trying to make Brooklyn better. I think part of that is having you as a district attorney.
Oh, thank you.
You're doing incredible work within Brooklyn, and getting people to trust and understand that. It's really huge. So this is the end of our show. We could continue this conversation. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time left. Last word to the community, if you have one.
I'd like people to reflect on what we've been doing and to see how it has had a positive effect on the public safety levels of Brooklyn, not by locking every third person up, but by having programs, 30 of them, that reduce reoffending rates and give people a chance and give them a break. And having reviewed all that, I hope they'll remember me on September 10th, because that's
Yes.
primary day.
Yes, we need to talk about it a little
Yes,
bit
ma'am.
more, but
Okay.
September 10th. Well, thank you, sir, for
Thank you
coming.
so much for having me. I really
Anytime,
appreciate it.
anytime,
It was great.
anytime. This is your home.
Good.
This is the end of our show. I hope you enjoyed it. I've learned a whole lot. Hope you did too. I will see you next Tuesday, same place, same time. Bye-bye.
Good. Okay. I hope you can.